Yes, sir. I was muted.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us here this evening. We are at Studio 1776. I'm your host, Daniel Leach. I'm joined by Eric, the Freedom Screamer, and Donna Nicholson, and we're going to be talking about the case this evening. I'm going to introduce Eric here first, and he can give us a little background on what is happening here with this case. Go ahead, Eric, the Freedom Screamer of Courtroom Watch.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it. Wanted to welcome Donna Nickerson tonight from Idaho. Chris in Las Vegas, I believe, is with us. Gary in Michigan, are you with us, my sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think what I want to do is I don't want to mischaracterize anything. I want to get everything right. So I'm just going to let Donna, in her words, tell us what's going on. But first, I want to start off with a prayer. We are talking with Donna Nickerson and her family tonight from Clearwater, Idaho, about a property confiscation, an unlawful property confiscation that put a family basically homeless for Thanksgiving this year. So I want everybody to pray for our friends, the Nickersons in Idaho, and we'll get the whole story here in a second. But first, Gary, can you start us off with a prayer? I think we need it tonight. This is a really egregious case, and there's so much in it. We'll get into that, but start us off with some words of prayer as we go in, so we can have some wisdom and some protection from on high for this battle that we're fighting with the dark forces that are ahead of us.
You made it right, the dark forces. I thank you. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you with the understanding of what has got us in the position that we're in this country and probably around the world as fellow Israelites. We have forgotten who our Father is. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, especially the knowledge of our Father, which He gave us in the law. That verse also contains the fact that we'll forget the law. And the law is the most important thing that the Father gave us. It is our instructions for life. And they make plain common sense. They're wonderful to work with. And the more that you get to understand it, the more you can get to the blessing of what the Father said. The law was not some terrible thing that was hung on a cross somewhere. The law is forever. So when we recognize the Father and His creation and His laws that go along with creation, they fit right in and join together with each other. It's the most wonderful thing that I found out in my 85 years of life. It took a while. It took a while for me to understand. So we bring forth a prayer for the Nickerson family that whatever that can be done, our Father, in intervention from the Most High in any area that they could come in. We ask, Father, that they get the blessing of our Creator, our Father, Yodivahi. And we ask this all in His name, so be it.
Thank you so much, Gary. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Donna Nickerson of Clearwater, Idaho, and she's going to tell us basically, I guess, give us an overview, and then we can get into details and open up some dark corners of our government and our banking system. Ms. Donna Nickerson, go ahead.
Thanks, Eric. We are basically our home, and we have a ministry ranch out in Orpino, Idaho. It's Clearwater County, as you said, and we are fighting a wrongful foreclosure. We've been fighting this battle for almost 10 years. We are right now. There is an ejectment action that had been filed, a case that was for ejectment, where we're trying to say, that. They've won the foreclosure. There has never been a trial. Everything has been done, or we've never stood before a jury. Everything that's been done has been through summary judgment, and so just no real due process has ever occurred. We did not do anything wrong. We committed no act or inaction that would warrant or justify our ranch being taken from us. So we've stood against it and just continued to try to work with the judicial system. Our founding fathers, in their wisdom, they set up a system that allowed us to have a jury of our peers, allowed us to have an opportunity when someone falsely accused you to stand against that and go into go to a place much like Brother Gary was mentioning, the law just then of God, and our courtrooms were initially set up under those laws, and so anyway, we just never have had any kind of an opportunity to stop this thing. There were no eviction or ejectment orders or actions or writs or anything going on, and yet Tuesday, the lawsuit is going on, obviously, but it is an appeal process. We had not been served or told, we need to leave or anything. In fact, we had the assurance of the sheriff that our property was not in jeopardy. We were fine. Everything was good. Yet on November the 12th, we were lured down to the sheriff's office, and we went in, said, "Good morning, sir. It's good to see you." And he said, "Well, you're not going to think so after I tell you what I'm about to tell you." He then told us our property, we had been evicted. Everything that was in our property would be sold by the bank. The bank now owned everything. We could not return. He had put a hard perimeter around it, and it was just an amazing day. We had officers with rifles drawn, assault rifles drawn. We had neighbors threatened, ordered to stay in their homes. The state police participated. It looked like there was a huge terrorist event or something going on, and so we're just kind of in shock still. Obviously very hurt, very betrayed, specifically by the sheriff.
Let me just interrupt. There was a terroristic act involved, and it was the government terrorizing you, and I think that really needs to be said, because we've just, I think, gone into a kind of a slumber, assuming that the terrorist is always some guy with his scarf wrapped around his head off or with a pirate's patch or somewhere overseas, or it's our own government at this point. Now, Donna, so part of the overview, and we can dig in to some of the depths of this, there are a couple of things that stood out in my head. You had consistently made payments to the banker, J.P. Morgan Chase, on time, property taxes included, to the county. The property was not in arrears, or it had no encumbrances upon it. And from what I can understand, the bank just basically sold your mortgage to an entity that initiated foreclosure and bounced you back and forth from one to the other, and claiming they weren't getting paid when you fully offered to you had made your payments on time, and then offered to even pay off the mortgage. So it should not have been a money issue. What do you think, and I know because you've told me, but I want you to tell our listeners what you were told, and because I'd like to kind of cut to the chase and then back up and then open up the whole story. So knowing listeners and followers of what we do here at Courtroom Watch and Single Parents Helping SingleParents.org, shout out to all the people who follow us there and appreciate your activism. We're trying to help the Nickersons get their property back because they're out basically in the woods right now, thrown off their ranch after they were assured by the sheriff that everything's okay, after they had made their payments on time to the mortgage, to the lender. And then what were you told that was the most shocking part? I'm going to let you tell it, but you know what I want you to reveal to our listeners is what was it that they told you the reason that they didn't want to do business with you anymore, and what was that reason?
Okay. Well, you're absolutely right, Eric. This was not a money issue, an equity issue, a failed loan modification, a tax issue. It was just the banks decided that their direct payment was paid like us, and we asked why do you hate us? At least we got somewhere, and but at that point, and they said it was because we were Christians. And in the entire case, over a decade of being just attacked and terrorized by the banks, that's the only answer that we were ever given as to why they were doing this, and that came from the executive offices.
See that it doesn't. It blows me away, and it doesn't. On one hand, it doesn't surprise me because that's the type. But I don't want that to lead to any sense of comfort. This is outrageous and it's shocking. And notice, can you imagine if they would have said, We're not going to do business with you anymore because you're Muslim or you're Hindu or you're Buddhist or anything. I mean, if they had the key in on that. And so I don't care, listeners, followers, people, anybody listening to this, I don't care what you think about Christians. Yay, nay, up, down, good, bad, whatever. That doesn't really matter. The point is persecution comes for all of us. Now it's that Christian person over there, then it's that Muslim person over there, then it's that Hindu person, then it's that person who has no faith, and then it's that person who has too much faith or the wrong faith. This can come for all of us, and this is why whatever you think of the Nickersons' faith, if they're not free, we're not free. If they are not allowed to own private property, we are not going to be allowed to own private property. And this republic was founded on private property rights, which is what really blows my mind. And even further, every sheriff and trooper and judge involved in this case took an oath, most of the times, I think almost every time on the Bible, and swore to God to uphold the Constitution, which guarantees private property rights and due process. And the judges and police and sheriffs and troopers all went out to immediately proceed to violate that oath that they just took and go right out and steal the Nickersons' property 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, nonetheless. It's absurd. Okay, back to you, Donna, if you want to fill in some blanks or correct me if I'm wrong in any of my analyses or characterizations.
No, Eric. We've had several conversations now, and I think we're pretty much very much on the same page. But to add to what you were just saying about the officers and all coming out here, Sheriff Getz has all along during this battle has been very supportive of us. In fact, the day that they held an alleged sheriff's sale. On that day, he actually went into the county prosecutor's office and tried to stop it because he said, I think there's some fraud here. What do I do? How do I stop this? He was ordered by the county prosecutor to go ahead and hold the sale or he'd be held personally liable. When he held the sale, he did it with an expired writ. It referenced a void judgment. There were all kinds of things wrong with the sale, so we still thought, we had the fact that the judicial relief could be there because the sale did not occur. A lawful sale did not occur. But all along, there's just been a complete ignoring of the laws. Even the raid that was done the other day. Again, we were not served anything in advance, and the writ that we saw the morning after we'd been evicted, the sheriff had already told us we'd been evicted, and he showed it to us. I'm quoting from it right now. It says, "Now therefore in the name of the state of Idaho, you're hereby commanded to cause defendants and their goods and chattels to be forthwith removed from the premises, and the plaintiff is to have restitution of the same. In the event the goods and chattels are not promptly removed thereafter by the said defendants," that's us, "you are authorized and empowered to cause the same to be removed to a safe place for storage." And so even, the supposed writ that was given him, he had to serve us. On the front of it, it says serve and leave. He had to serve us, give us that opportunity to take our stuff. And rather than doing that, they came in. Again, we had snipers in the trees, in the bushes. Apparently they had been staged since the wee hours of the morning. They went in with a locksmith available. In fact, the locksmith even we saw him go down to our property, but instead of using the locksmith, they took axes, cut through doors, broke through windows, climbed through them, and opened. They used a rod, like what do you call them? Like, I don't know, a bamming rod. I don't know what you'd call it. Anyway, they did that. I mean, they just aggressive. They night. Probably somewhere that 10 to midnight time frame. We had a very long day, obviously, so if I have the times not quite right, I apologize. But somewhere in there, they called and said they were going to let us have our frozen goods. We're farmers. We have organic farms here in our home in Montana. And so we had over 60 cubic feet of frozen goods in the freezers. And so we simply asked them, can y'all leave it in, bring the freezers and let us plug it in? And they said, nope, all this belongs to the bank now. And so it's not your freezers. You don't have any freezers. So we said, okay, can we wait till morning? The moment the store's open, we'll buy freezers, put them in a neighbor's, and then do it. And they said, if you want your stuff, you have to take it now. And so they literally emptied over 60 cubic feet of freezers into garbage bags and brought it to us on a gravel pullout on the side of the road. They're just, this was just, there was a maliciousness and intimidation, unnecessary intimidation. While we were unloading the trucks, here's our whole family and some sweet friends and neighbors that had stood with us all day long out here, and they're standing there with their rifles drawn, assault rifles drawn, and real close to us. And I simply asked the one man, would you mind moving back maybe 10 feet, sir? And they said no, and I said, look, everybody's unarmed. I mean, we're ranchers. There's not so much of a pocket knife on us. We had made sure there was nothing, and we're trying to work with y'all, but having a gun sit there in your face is a little bit much. And they refused to even just back up the 10 feet, and even that was just an intimidation type measure. The truth is, he was safer from a tactical standpoint to be 10 more feet away from us. Where he was, you could have potentially charged him and grabbed his gun, in that close.
That was their whole, one of their purposes, is to try to instigate, bait people, goad them into action, get somebody angry or agitate, get in their face, threaten, get right up there with their gun in your face, you're unarmed, you're like, can you just back off a little? And they're like, no, absolutely not. They wanted you to make that, they're looking for that, because only out of chaos can they have their control. So they're always looking for to pick a fight. They're just mean. That's just absolutely mean, to let the meat spoil and this stuff and not work with you for overnight. I mean, and denying you all due process. These great oath keepers with the sheriffs and state police in Idaho. I mean, it's just, is there anything that the police and sheriffs and troopers will not do? I mean, they probably won't do it to their own mother, but they'll go cut someone's throat. I mean, I really do think it's come to that. They'll steal your house, put you homeless, starve you, ruin your food, and do things just out of spite, it seems. There's no reason for it. Now let's look into a little more of, because I know our followers are going to want to know, how did this happen? Why does this happen? I can't believe that there's got to be more to the story. And there is. You offered at one point to pay off the entire mortgage because even if the payments were in dispute. Now let me just interject right here, because I had just watched a senior citizen in Allegheny County here where I live, upstate New York, get completely ripped off. Well, the rip-off didn't happen because she resisted. God bless her. And I kind of assisted in just kind of moral support. She did great pretty much herself on the phone with Rochester Gas and Electric, another corporation similar to in their structure and in their business model to Chase Bank, which is what Donna is dealing with here in Idaho. And out of nowhere, they just sent her a bill for $394 and said, you haven't been making your payments. She went to the bank, and I know because I was with her in the car. She got every proof of every single check that she had mailed to this corporation for her electric bill every single month to the penny, proof positive, emailed it to the supervisor. He said, okay, no problem. And then somebody else in the corporation still kept calling her and trying to collect the money. And then we resolved it with them. And then it still went to another collection division that still wants to collect. They're ruthless. There was no just cause for this bill for $394 for this woman. And I could tell. I could just sense a scam. They were picking out people over 75. 4 out of 5 will probably just write the check if they get a bill that says you owe us this money. You'd say, well, I thought I paid my bill over the winter, but maybe I guess, the corporation can't be wrong. It must send the bill. And anyway, the good news was I said, hey, how many people do you think in this community would make the call and stand up to the ripoff? And she said 2 out of 3. And she knows everybody around here. And I thought that was good news, that there's a spirit of resistance, that people wouldn't really take that. But I could see what the corporation was doing. And so I've seen this pattern of, hey, we didn't get your payment, even though you've made it. I mean, I watched, like I said, this woman had proof that she made the payment, canceled check. So I've seen this before. This is not anything new. This is a pattern that's going on with corporations, blatantly ripping people off. And the fact that you were told, sorry, pal, we cannot do business with you because you're Christians is very telling. Who do you think owns the bank that would be that upset about somebody of any faith? I believe at one point, Donna, you told me the sheriff even was kind of blown away that the bank wouldn't let you keep the house under any circumstances, or the ranch, because not only did you offer to pay off the mortgage when things got sticky, you also offered, hey, we'll sell the property. You had a friend who was going to buy it and then share use of it with you. You know, there was multiple arrangements made to try to buy the place right out, top dollar. Nope, sorry. And you were told what? The Nickersons, you cannot have your property. Am I wrong on that? Donna, are you with us? Do we have Donna?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Donna, you were breaking up a little, so try to stand near the window if you can. But am I not mistaken that you tried not only to get the mortgage, you tried multiple ways to pay off the mortgage, either yourself or sell it to somebody else that you knew, an acquaintance, and somehow buy the place right out, get it paid off, satisfy the entire mortgage. So guess what? There should be no problem, right? Wrong. They didn't want you to have that property specifically. Am I right on that?
Yes, sir. They've actually told us, and most recently, they actually told our sheriff that we could not have the property. This is really, like I said, this has just never been a money issue. It felt like a punishment.
Right.
They just wanted to take the property, and we made heroic efforts to work with them to stop, there being even a dispute or a conflict, both prior to, during, and now post, all of the litigation that has taken place. We were still in possession of our home. We have fulfilled all obligations toward it in every area, and we were still in possession. And as far as we are concerned, and as we have informed the sheriff and the bank, we still consider ourselves in possession. Just because you come in and forcibly remove somebody and block returning, with armed guards and at gunpoint, does not mean they've abandoned or walked away or anything,
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question? This is John.
Sure. Come on in.
Do you vote? Donna, do you vote?
Welcome.
Are you a voter?
I'm sorry, sir, I did not hear your question.
Are you a voter?
Are we
voting?
As far as as far as for our country?
Do you vote when they have ballots to vote?
No,
do you vote?
Yes, sir. We have voted. Yes, sir.
Okay. In that case, you supported this system. Now, the people that know what's going on and this is happening to, that never vote and never supported, those are the real victims. You should have woke up a long time ago to what your country is, a terrorist organization, and stopped supporting it.
Well,
now you're really...
Hold on. Daniel, put him on mute. Daniel, put him on mute.
Being honest here, let me finish. You reap what you sow. Now it's time to wake up to the truth and get rid of the terrorist organization.
You made your point. That's good. Look, listen, tonight is not going to be chance. Better late than never, if that's even the case. We're going to leave it at that. Thank you, caller. Appreciate the call. Okay, back to Donna. No, I'm not going to turn this into let's chastise the victim and try to. We need to point the finger where it belongs. Donna's not at fault up there camping out, looking at her former property that the government just stole at the behest of the bankers. Oh, by the way, caller, those cops and the judges, the troopers, the sheriffs, all of them belong to what's called PERSI, the Public Employees Retirement System of Idaho. Every penny they're going to get from now in their future out of their pension is invested in PERSI. You want to guess how many shares of J.P. Morgan Chase that PERSI owns? $50 million worth. So every one of those cops, judges, every one of them is directly benefiting by their pension going up and up and up if they execute orders from that bank that their pension fund owns stock in. That's not just corruption. That's racketeering and conspiracy. Let's point the finger where it belongs. Yes, I know. We've all done stupid, I don't want to say stupid things. We've all been hoodwinked by a bunch of scammers out of the Zionist bankers and Rome, the managers in Rome. And we could talk about the top of the pyramid later, but right now let's focus on the executioners, the people who are really to blame, the people who stole Donna Nickerson's property and spoiled their meat. Hold on. So I want to focus on put the onus where it really belongs. Yes, okay, we've all done something to support the system. Hey, if people want to go out and get a driver's license, fine, caller. Do you drive? Do you have a driver's license? You're supporting the system. Stay home. Get rid of your car. don't rent a property because or own a place because they're paying property taxes to the county government. They're the ones who own the title. So I wouldn't live in any house. Go out and sit in a teepee somewhere. So you can take this to the absurd. We're not going there tonight. So back to Donna's case. Now, I want to make it really clear. Multiple times they tried to pay off this mortgage and satisfy it, and they were specifically told, no, Nickersons, you cannot have that property. So there's a nefarious agenda being executed by J.P. Morgan Chase. Now let's jump over to your trip to Washington, D.C. Nickersons go to D.C. I thought that was fascinating. You visited with, well, you tell the story and what you were told, just like you told me before, Donna. Back to you.
Okay, actually, Sheriff Getz, post the sale, the day of the sale, apologized to us afterwards and explained to us he just did not have a choice because he'd been told they would go after him personally. My husband then asked him, what would you do if you were us? And he said, well, I would get out of Idaho and go to D.C. if you want any justice. That's all I know to tell you. And so we did. Large family, we headed out to D.C. We went to see all 535 of our United States senators and representatives, went to every one of their offices multiple times. We visited with different agencies. Basically, we spent a lot of time praying in D.C., and we definitely we believe in prayer and never doubt the power of it. And so we spent a bunch of time just walking around the National Mall, went to some of the different ministries that are out there and just tried to encourage them in their ministries and just to encourage them, to realize they had an amazing platform there being in the middle of D.C. and just share our story with them and try to encourage and inspire them to stay in, to keep up the good fight and try to make a difference right there in D.C. They the different senators and representatives, when we talked to them, many of them were actually talked to us personally. They would hear the story. They would get, just kind of, very much engaged, very involved until they heard J.P. Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo were involved. And then what we heard over and over, oh, man, we could help you if it wasn't one of those banks. We were told that Chase controls all the money in the United States. I guess the first J.P. Morgan Chase, whatever, he was the one that began the Federal Reserve, is what we were told, and they basically control the money. And we were told Wells Fargo controls all the assets. We know that the Senate Ethics Committee, there were senators that were interested in our story. They were told to stand down. They could not get involved. Basically, everybody has moved us from one place to the other. Before, when this first started, we got a hold of the governor's office, the attorney general's office, the Department of Finance, everybody we could call to say, hey, this is what this bank is doing. Can you help us? Everybody told us, oh, you got to go to court. You got to get an attorney. That's the only way you can do anything. And then once we got into court and realized that was really not working, the judge was just not listening, and it seemed to have a predisposed opinion of the case, and just was not even going. It just would not allow us to put any evidence or anything in, whenever we realized that. Then we went back to all those agencies, and all of them told us then they couldn't help because we were in court. And so it's been this constant shuffling, and I guess, from our the place where we are and from our perspective, Eric, there was just nothing else that could have humanly possibly been done to end the problem. We really did try. And, even in the midst of it all, I wish I could say that, we're not angry at all about it. Obviously we are. We've been mistreated. We've been abused. We've been betrayed. But in the midst of it all, we have constantly, even in the last weeks or the last month, I should say, we've said to the sheriff, we've said to Governor Little's office here in Idaho, the long arm of friendship is extended out to you as far as we possibly can. What we want to have happen, mistakes, Idaho. You've mistreated us, you've abused us, but what we're trying to do is save our house, save our property, And then let's all rally around. Let's talk. Let's find out, how did these big banks manage to do that? I mean, the banks are telling our county government and our state government, here, you do our bidding for us. And, you know, how did we get here? It's crazy. And so what we ask them is, let's rally around. Let's have some roundtables. Let's have some think tanks. And let's figure out how to insulate the county and insulate the state from what we call gangsters and mortgage robbers stealing our home. And the response now, obviously, that we have now received is they've just come in and this was an armed invasion, is what it was. Americans, and I wish, you know, very sad, but there have been, we've heard a lot of stories very similar to ours. And
absolutely. And yours is particularly egregious, though, and that's why, you know, it's so important that we focus on your case and get people to try to help however they can. I'm going to start throwing some suggestions out there, and I want you to keep kind of, after I'm done with my little bit, you can kind of throw in some more details of things that happened in your case that were, I find that fascinating. That, I mean, we have to really focus on what Donna was told by representatives in D.C. that, oh, sorry, if it was another bank, we could probably help you, but not if it's J.P. Morgan Chase or Wells Fargo. Just so happen the two very banks that are pretty much managing most of these types of situations, and yours is unique in that there's so many egregious, I mean, you know, violations of your lawful status as a property holder, even as a mortgagee. You know, you're still entitled, but that doesn't just mean, you know, the bank owns you and can just tell you we're yanking the whole property out from under you whenever we want to, and the court's going to go along with it. This is why it's so important we take the courts back. I found it very interesting, a couple of things. So we have the public employees retirement system that all the cops and judges are invested in, going up and up and up every time they execute an action for J.P. Morgan, because their retirement funds own $50 million. And so, you know, now, one thing I suspect that I'm seeing here is it sounds like the police are either under threat or under coercion, bribery, something, because it sounds like the sheriff at times wanted to kind of do the right thing, and he was basically threatened, was he not, Donna?
Yes.
Can you give us the more kind of what he told you about them coming after his property or something to that effect? Can you fill in that blank? And keep in mind you're breaking up, so if you can get near a window or improve your reception in any way, that would be a big help.
Eric, I have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, Donna. This is Daniel of Studio 1776. I'm the presenter tonight for the video. I was just in my mind, could it be possible that the banks were looking to grab your property for a reason that may have to do with elements that are in the ground? Like, we're looking at other cases like when they did the other seizure of land, they were looking to try to steal the lands because they had elements that were valuable, like uranium or something like that. Do you know of any type of studies that were done in your area that may present an opportunity for the bankers to steal the land that you're on?
Actually, Daniel, that is correct. Of course, we've never been given that as a reason, but this is a uranium area. There have been studies done here for uranium specifically. We also have gold and diamonds in the area under the ground. The possibility of there being something that's very very valuable is very real. The other thing that is significant about our property is we have a 50-acre property that is completely surrounded. The community and most of this area is all on a tribe. It's all tribal land. A particular piece of property is not. And so for someone that knew that there were pretty valuable stuff under the ground, to want to get their hands on it and actually be able to do something with it because, of the type of, we have a warranty deed on it. It's an original foundational one. And so, all rights and everything are owned. That's been suggested to us several times, and by different people and in different situations. So
you definitely do own the mineral rights on that land, correct?
Yes, sir. Our warranty deed is foundational, is what we've been told. I think someone told us, I don't know what it's called, but it just means, what happened was this piece of property used to be in the tribal land, and it was traded out, and because a government employee, I guess, was going to develop it, and so he was in a position he traded somehow or another, got it off of there, and then it came to us, and through as he sold it and stuff, and so yes, sir, that would be very possible, and again, that's been presented to us as a possibility. We don't know. What we know is this is America, and property rights, religious freedom, due process, those are foundational citizenship, foundations of our citizenship. And, no matter what their reason, power, greed, whatever it is, or if it's what they told us, they were targeting Christians in essence, kind of part of their Obama's Operation Chokeout that went around. We don't know. We just know that the only thing they ever told us is it's because they hated us and our kids, and they were going to throw us out on the street. And even though the big banks had not managed that, on Tuesday, November 12th, our fellow countrymen dressed up with badges on, law enforcement from the county and from the state. They did throw us out on the street, and that's why we are still here. We're on a little perch just overlooking the property. There's a lot of activity going on at the property, none of which should be, because there are some of our personal belongings still in there. But they are, we nonetheless, from a standpoint of what we were definitely in a hostile armed invasion removed. And that should be scary to every American. Whether, I think you were saying earlier, Eric, it didn't matter if it was Christians or not. Next month it could be fishermen. It could be, part of the reason that liberty and justice has to be for all is otherwise, every time the changing of the guard occurred, there could be someone else that could be persecuted. And, religious freedom, as we often tell people, it's the freedom to believe or the freedom not to believe. If non-believers allow Christians to be persecuted, then the day may come where non-believers are persecuted. History both have happened in history. And, and with property rights, the part of what makes America is the fact that you can work hard and give your all and, build a practice for you and your family, and for that to just be stripped away because a bank decides you don't get to keep it anymore, it's terrifying to us as a family. Obviously we're living it right now, but it's terrifying for us, for all the other people that we've heard their stories. And people have resonated and contacted us through phone calls and emails just to tell us what's happened to them. And, there's a Montana representative that had a 4th-generation Montana ranch. He came up to my husband and he said, Nick, why are you doing this? And my husband said, because it is the right thing to do. And he said, no, you guys have been fighting this thing for a long time. Why are you doing this? And my husband said, because it is the right thing to do. And he kind of looked at all of us, me and the kids and everybody, and then he said, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. And Wells Fargo told this man, this Montana state representative, that he had to sign over his property, or they would take his career. And, I wish that was an isolated occurrence, but when we were out in D.C., we met
Can you name the representative?
But I sure could. If my husband were on the phone, he probably could give you the name. But, Eric, we have it in all of our notes. We have files that we had created of people that we've talked to across the country that have shared their stories with us. But maybe that's something we can talk about later.
Give us your website, would you?
Yes, sir. It's www.ithappenedtous.com. And our message to America has been, look, if this can happen to us when we truly did nothing wrong, then there's not a home safe there that's safe in America. You know, if it can happen to us, it can happen to you. And that's kind of been our message of just trying to just stand against this thing. You know, we're only one family, and, you know, we may ultimately not be able to make a difference, but we've just talked to too many people, you know, little widows whose husbands worked their whole lives to, you know, make sure they had a home and everything was good, and then, you know, he dies, and the bank, and not due to missing payments or anything else, just due to greed and just being evil or wicked as far as we're concerned. But anyway, they've gone in and they've stolen these homes, and we've seen entire communities and cities, you know, that have been affected by this. And it's not over is the problem. The media has shifted it around in some ways, and, you know, things maybe are not as reported as what they were, but we are still running into people and hearing stories, and it's happening right now. We've heard people telling us more is coming. And, you know, it's just sad. I don't know what, you know, we've tried so hard to walk the highest road of integrity in this. And so, you know, I personally, you know, have not done any, I don't have the ability to do any personal statistics or anything like that, but we have had people tell us that almost 40 million homes have been foreclosed, and that's a staggering statistic. I wish, you know, maybe y'all are in a position to validate that. But you know, if that's true at all, what have we got? 130-something million in America, and 40 million households were foreclosed. That's just scary to us.
Yeah, it should. That should shock people. I mean, and the police are out seizing more property and more property every day like this for absurd reasons that could be resolved. I mean, you came with, you know, solutions. Hey, we'll pay it off. Hey, we have a buyer. Our friend's going to buy it and let us share it. I mean, but they were like, no, you are not going to have that property. I don't care if you buy it. Give us twice as much money. There was nothing you could do. That indicates a whole other agenda. We have to accept that. Get over the immediate, you know, you were being denied that property for some very deep reasons. A, and they told you they didn't care for your faith. B, there could be something under the ground. You never know, minerals or artifacts. If it's Indian territory and there's artifacts there, those are always worth quite a bit. But that's speculation. But focusing on, now I wanted to backtrack just a little bit and open up two things that you touched on. One is a question, and then I have a comment on citizenship, because we have to start talking about that, because the reason they don't hear us in court is because we're citizen subjects and not free people anymore. And I'm going to open that up front in a second. But what was Operation? Yeah.
I also wanted to have Donna here focus on tomorrow's court case. I think that's very important for us as an organization to call and support and do a phone blitz on behalf of the person that is going to court.
Yes. Okay. Let's do this. Let me have my quick question. I'll talk about citizenship after we address the court appearance. I believe it's for something relatively minor that was kind of like a trespassing charge for going back onto the property, but we'll talk about that in a second. What was Operation Stokeout you were talking about? Or Operation?
Yes, Operation Chokeout. We actually learned about that by a letter that Senator Crapo, and I think there were like 5 senators earlier this year, had written a letter to the banks. During Obama's term, our understanding is there was an executive action where the banks were targeting Christians. They were targeting people whose agendas were different than the current administration, and the program or the whatever was called Operation Chokeout. And my understanding is that the Idaho Senator Crapo, and I think I believe again, you know, Erica, I hate to say the same thing, but I feel so handicapped. We don't have our notes that I normally would have to read to you, because they stole it all. But anyway,
right.
What they basically said in this letter was they were warning these banks and saying, look, Operation Chokeout has been canceled. You know, you deal with businesses and you know, you use credit based on credit worthiness. My son is over here helping me here a little bit, but basically the Justice Department is trying to end a program that targeted objectionable industries. I know that some of your gun companies were targeted, churches were targeted, you know, just people that were against it. And anyway, but I'm guessing that was back. I'm thinking it was recent. Maybe September-ish kind of things like that. I think August is when we found out. But I do have letters that I would be happy to forward to you, and we'll be putting those on the website as well, where we actually were able to get that. But that's what it is. So
now,
I
listen, let me just hold on. Let me interject there, because as you're doing that, whenever you're going to post something, remember to make sure you email it so we can post it up on our website and our social media as well, and people can get that information out there. So make sure you email it to us as well every time you want something posted. We'll get it up for you through our people as well. So
it was actually called Operation Choke Point.
Choke Point. Okay. Excuse me. I apologize for that. But the one thing on that is what happened after the attack on us started, and again, not trying to be political, but nonetheless, it did happen shortly after Obama went in. There were churches all across the country that were being foreclosed on, and ministries and ministry leaders that were being targeted and stuff like that. And part of what our family, the Nickerson family, does is we come alongside people, in the ministry, people that love people. We just come alongside and try to encourage them and stuff like that. And so, that's been one of the things that we thought may have made us a little bit different than, obviously there's Christians, a lot of Christians that live in our country. But I think that maybe that's how we got on the other side's bad boy list.
Yes, you're exactly right. You are what's called an activist Christian. You're actually not just hearers of the word, you're doers of the word. And let's not forget what my broadcast always stands on, Psalms 94:16. Who will rise up for me against the evildoers? Who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity? That's not a stand-down order from on high. That's a call to activism, people. And so we're delegated to help, I believe, our brethren, people like, and once again, it doesn't really matter which state. It matters that this is happening to somebody in this country. And so let's talk about the appearance tomorrow of the young lady who was arrested for what? Was it, Donna?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You said to talk about tomorrow? It's at 1 o'clock?
Tomorrow's appearance, yeah. So who was the person and what was the charge? What happened there?
Actually, my sister, she was on the property. The sheriff called that morning and asked us if he called about 8:30. We were having a late breakfast and just getting ready to sit down. And I said, "Can we come later?" And he said, "Oh, you know what? At 9:30, I've got to meet with the commissioners. Is there any way you could do this at 9?" And I said, "Okay. Is there a problem or anything?" He said, "No. We're just having an update." And so anyway, we went down. Well, while we were gone, they broke in. They came through the door. There's a big picture window, glass window. This is a mountain retreat, property. And anyway, they came through the glass window, glass everywhere, took his gun, button, I guess. And actually, no, I'm sorry, I think he used a bolt cutter. He used bolt cutters to break the window. And then they came in, 4 men with assault rifles. We do have an audio. Jenny was on the phone with us when it happened. And so we have that audio that you'll be able to hear. And basically...
She was simply just at the property minding her own business when they decided to do an assault after you were told by the sheriff just a few days prior that everything was okay for at least another, roughly a month or so, something to that effect. I don't want to be exact on the numbers, but he said something like 3 to 4 weeks. And you were under the impression from him that there was a stay on the matter and that you were not going to get hit by any goon squad, so to speak, and then they came on your sister. Okay, so they arrested her on the spot for what, trespassing?
They called it trespass, and just to back up, what it was is that the sheriff had told us if anything changed, period, if he heard from the bank, if they did another writ, if anything happened, because they had canceled the eviction, voided the check, everything. And so he said if anything else happened, he would give us a call, and we would have 3 to 4 weeks at that time to prepare. So obviously we'd have got to stay because we have an appeal in place. We could have done a stay pending appeal, but there was nothing going on to stay at the moment, so there was no reason. But at any rate, that morning on November 12th, Jeannie was absolutely totally within our rights for her to be on the property. There was no one had ever. There was just no. We weren't even supposed to be leaving. We weren't. There was absolutely no basis. But what they did to her was very, very alarming. It was right around 9 a.m. I have to look at it exactly. Can anybody give me the number? Stephanie, do you know what time it was when were on the phone with her by chance?
That's close enough. It was in the morning.
Between 9 and 9:30, and anyway, what they did was they put double handcuffs on her, which was kind of funny that, that I don't know, that seemed odd to us. And then they took her outside. There's over 7,000 square feet of living area covered, that would have been covered in stuff that they could have put her in, surely in some corner. But instead, it was in the low 30s. It was raining, and they had her sit on, we have this little retaining wall, it's just maybe a couple of feet high, with bricks that are about 6 inches maybe wide, cold, obviously, at that and she wasn't dressed for the elements or anything. And anyway, they had her go there and sit with it raining on her. And what time was it? Hours. We know what was it? We were able to figure it out because of what time he wrote it down. But I want to say it was around 3 hours. It was around 3 hours of having to sit like that. And not only that, then she was able to watch them, breaking into the houses and everything from that perspective. And at one point, they even came out drinking our water bottles and eating candy bars on the porch. And, drink was offered to her, no food was offered. She was pretty upset, so I don't know that she would have accepted it. But nonetheless, just the humane thing, even if they had just whatever, picked up a drug dealer or a terrorist or somebody that, had a bomber or something, they would have, I don't think they could have treated them that way.
Who is the prosecuting attorney, the district attorney for that area?
His name is Clayne Tyler.
Spell it?
Clayne, Tyler, Tyler.
Okay, Daniel, you can punch that into your search engine and we can share some of his information. And who is the judge that she's appearing in front of?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
You know the name of the judge that she's appearing in?
Yes. Well, the judge that's on our case is Gregory Fitzmaurice. Let me look at hers. The magistrate judge, I believe it's David Judd. I believe it's who it's going to be, Judd, we think. I don't know that we have that information, though. Something else is that they did not read her any rights before she was arrested. They did not show an affidavit. You're supposed to be able to ask for an affidavit or whatever. Because we've been looking now at the court thing. This is none of us even have speeding tickets, so this is a big deal. We're not criminals, but nonetheless, we've been looking now, trying to figure this out, and they didn't do any of that. And they just basically booked her. We had to pay $300 so she could get out of jail, and then now we have this hearing tomorrow. And
do you know what time the hearing takes place?
It's at 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, so I would encourage, I know I'm going to make a few calls in the morning, and the more people that they know are watching this case, the better. You don't even really have to have something super intellectually legal and lawful to say. People just call, let them know you're interested in the disposition of the Nickerson case, and get as much information as you can. Share it with us. You may get something we don't know. So I please people speak up on behalf of this family, because this can come for any one of us. This is just beyond egregious. One thing after another. They were told they're being denied their mortgage, the ability to pay their mortgage because of their faith. That's a new. To be told that overtly it blows my mind that the enemy has that much audacity. They're that confident, but that usually leads to a downfall, because the overconfident enemy that thinks it just has, and I know it's called the arrogance of power, and it's visible on the face of any cop, trooper, sheriff, judge. They all have it, and it's something that if you let it metastasize, it's like cancer. If you don't address it in the early stages, it can be fatal to us as a free people, and we're seeing that right now here. I'd be interested, so I would encourage people to contact the sheriff guests And I'll tell you and I don't know, I have not looked into this specifically yet, but if he's a member of the Child ID program, his connections are very sketchy. He has to be working with the Masons because the Masons are the Child ID group, and I've got that on record from multiple sheriffs. They even had a booth at the Michigan State Fair, the Masons Child ID program. They have a website online that says the Child ID program is the Masons working with the local sheriff, state police, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, to ensure that children are databased for their security, of course, in case they ever got kidnapped. So, and unfortunately, it's not the reason they're wanting to database the children, not for our own good. So, anyway, a very discomforting question to ask the sheriff. You want to make him squirm. Ask him if he's ever had any relationship with a cult called the Masons, or if he's involved in the Child ID program in any way. That'll be very telling, because it'll show that he's most likely a member of that group, and that group, unfortunately, has loyalties to itself and not to the people of this country. I've seen it happen in enough instances, because I've been kind of doing this for a few years, right, Daniel? So anyway, now the problem with it so I want everybody to, Daniel, if you can pull up the number for that courthouse, and is it the county or is it the town? Is it a municipal court, like a local courthouse, or is she going into Boise for this charge? What is going on? Can you give us some more information on where she's going to be tomorrow, Donna?
Yes, she'll be at the Clearwater County Courthouse.
Spell that. Spell it slowly.
Clearwater County, that's Clearwater, Clearwater County Courthouse. And her, like I said, the time is 1 o'clock. Her name's Jeannie, and she, one of the things that's interesting is the paperwork they gave her has the time of her offense, and they had arrested her hours before she allegedly committed the crime, which is also one of those things we're going to point out to them.
Yeah, unfortunately, they usually allow the police all kinds of leeway in fraud being committed on the paperwork. Of course, if we do that, if you or I do that, we're off to the witch's prison. But if they can screw up their paperwork and forge hours and delete stuff that they shouldn't, robo-signing, I always love that one. That's a really good way to challenge them, because there has to be a signature. I just opened up one document a woman sent me from Connecticut where she got arrested, and she was a patriot being persecuted for walking down the side of the road without a driver's license. And so, and anyway, we looked at the report and it said signature. So I looked up the definition of signature in the dictionary, and it says the name signed by one's own hand. That means the computer can't print it out, robo-bang it, because that's not a signature. So anyway, we challenged them on that. They ended up having to let her go. So it was an interesting thing that's something to look for as a technicality. But once again, the court is so corrupt. They're going to give so much leeway to anybody who works for their system, and absolutely none to us who are really guaranteed the due process. And one of the starting points for this whole reason that the courts aren't hearing us, that you can go in with your Constitution and your rights and all this other stuff, and the courts act like they're deaf, they don't hear you, is because there is a presumption when you go into the court that you are a 14th Amendment established citizen of the United States. That word is so crucial, people have to latch onto that and not let go. It is the last thing that you want to be as a citizen. Let me start with ancient Roman history. In the year 212 AD, all free men of the Empire of Rome became citizens. Now, what's the opposition, the transition that you become from a free person into a citizen? It's because the word citizen means subject. That means you are a pawn, you are a servant, you are a subservient, you are a minion of, how many words break out the thesaurus? You are underneath, you belong to, a citizen is a subject. A subject would be to like a king or a queen. So if you're a citizen, you are subject to the bylaws, statutes, codes, rules, regulations of the corporation that is your state, local, and federal government. So until we correct the status, it's called correcting your status, from being a citizen to being a living man or a living woman, And there's a specific way to do this, and I'm going to be posting on the website and within probably the next week on suggestions. I don't know if I'll be able to get it to her by tomorrow, but if she can ask for an adjournment while she they'll usually give you one right off the top if you ask for it right there. But you have to challenge. She wants a status hearing is what she wants. That's the first thing you want to do. If you don't have your citizenship already corrected on the public record with the county clerk, then you want to at least assert it when you get up in front of a magistrate or a judge and say, I'd like a status hearing. And they'll say, well, why would you want that? And you say, well, I'm challenging the presumption that I'm a 14th Amendment citizen. I've never been naturalized. The Mexican or Chinese person that lives down the street from me, they've been naturalized citizen. Who naturalized me? I didn't consent to this citizenship thing, and I am not a citizen. I'm a living man, and I require remedy. And that gets the ball rolling, and that will usually should scoot it out the door at that point. But if they don't, you want to respectfully insist on the status hearing to correct your status and challenge the presumption because you never consented to being this 14th Amendment citizen. You're not a citizen of the United States. You're an American national in New York or in Connecticut or in Idaho. And it's that simple. It's very fundamental. And the second thing is the court is always under the presumption that they have power of attorney over you. That's why they're always making decisions for you in court and deciding in their best interest and not yours. So you have to actually fill out just a brief letter and have it notarized, and there's a little formal way to do it, but it's simple. It's not very complex, but there's a specific way to word it that is important to get the words right. So I'll be putting templates up to assist people in correcting their status to a living man, living woman status, not the 14th Amendment citizen subject fictitious entity that they're presuming you are when you go into court. You have to authenticate your birth certificate. And there's several little filings that you do. It's not all that much of a big deal. So that's very important that we all challenge that presumption. Two presumptions. I'm challenging this. I'm rejecting the presumption that this court or any of its agents have power of attorney over me, for the record. And I'm rejecting the presumption that I'm a 14th Amendment citizen. I've never consented to any, never been naturalized. I do not consent to that. So I'd like to reestablish my status here using this, in this court on the record and see where it goes from there. That's about it. I mean, because look, ultimately the witches court does what it wants to do. Unfortunately, the only thing they respect is public pressure. So I'll ask people to make calls. We'll get the information posted on our website. Hopefully the Nickersons can get it up too, but they have limited internet access. And I heard somebody wants to chime in, so go ahead.
Absolutely. Tonight, I want to clarify what actually went down with the Bundys, Ammon Bundy. I want to know what actually happened. What did he do when he came down? I saw a video that he posted, but I want to know your side of the story about what happened because we are also part of the Patriot movement here, and I want to clarify from your words on your side of the story what happened with Ammon Bundy.
Sure. As a family, we kind of made the decision to just be silent. And the reason, let me explain. I'll give a brief answer to your question. He was in the area maybe a day total. He came in one morning, mid-morning, whatever, and he left the next morning. We only spent just a very small amount of time with him. He got his information from the folks down the mountain that are abusers and did not actually give us an opportunity to refute anything. In the raid, everything we had was taken. Literally, we had the clothes on our back. If you could imagine if all of a sudden you went to town very quickly and we're going to rush back and have breakfast, what would you have had in your vehicle? That's all we have right now. I can't really answer why he made the decisions he did. Here's the bottom line. Our family's been fighting for almost a decade and for one reason. It's the right thing to do. What was done to us is wrong, and too many men and women gave their lives, sacrificed and gave their lives to give us religious freedom, property rights, and due process, the things that are being stripped from us. And so over a decade ago, we we prayed about it, and we made the decision that whatever it cost us, that we would stand against this tyranny. And, it got worse for us as far as our burden and our passion as we've traveled the path trying to, over the last, like I said, all these years, fighting this battle, and all the people that we met, the soft stories, like ours, and they hurt, they're sad. It's like, no, not in America. This can't happen. And so all of those stories just kept making our commitment to trying to do whatever little tiny part we can in this battle for our little piece of America, our little piece of our homeland that would help everybody else. We don't see any value in attacking Mr. Bundy. His family had, we were one of the ones that were there and prayed. We weren't there on site, but we were praying for that family when they went through what they went through years ago. And, so we know they've had a hard time. And so, we wish them the best. We wish them whatever can happen on their end.
You're good on that. Let me chime in. Let's play good cop, bad cop here. You're a sweetheart, and because you're taking the high road, and I respect that. That's awesome. But, let me just say, as Ammon Bundy, it appears, rolled into town, completely unaware of the situation, gave the Nickersons about 3 minutes, went down to talk to the sheriff for about 30 minutes, and then came out and said, looks good to me, throw him out in the street. I mean, I don't know what came over. I have heard Ammon Bundy make other absurd claims and issues, unrelated to this, but, I don't think whatever he apparently, according to, he didn't give Donna enough time a day to show them what they had on the computer and this and that. He basically came and had a few words with them and scurried his way himself out the door, cleared everything with the sheriff, and took the side of the enemy in this. And I'm sorry. I've spent hours and hours on the phone with the Nickerson family, not just Donna, but her children. They're all, I think, right dead nuts on the money. I don't think I'm being lied to or BS'd or anything. I can smell that a mile away. There's not, I don't see them as the, as the people in the, they're in the right. They're not in the wrong. The sheriff was not in the right on this. The sheriff, I don't see how Ammon Bundy or anybody else can say, looks good. Everything the sheriff did looks right to me. Okay, go ahead. I don't see anything the sheriff did that was right in this. It looks like he had a little bit of conscience here and there. But great. But he didn't run with it in the end. He was ordered or threatened that he's going to be held liable. Now, he should have had his gonads in place and stood up and had some sack and said, no, you're not going to threaten me like that. I'm the chief peace officer in this county, and if the state troopers go up there and try to steal the property, I'm going to go up there and warn the people that they're coming. I'm going to put up some guys up there to protect them. And they wouldn't guarantee the system would back down. They don't want anything that's going to throw this country into a real serious restoration, which is what we need. And so the sheriff should have had some guts. There's plenty of sheriffs around the country. I was told the sheriff in the Shane Bennett case refused 6 times to execute the gun seizure, but the state police special operations and response team were happy to do it. And they're the biggest threat right now to our security is the Department of Homeland Gestapo and the state police in each state. And then because they're the ones who are threatening the sheriff, well, we're going to arrest you, we're going to hold you liable, we're going to take your stuff, or they just threaten them, hey, we could always fix the, brakes in your car or make some implication that we're going to get you. And, at that point, people have to make a decision. Do I ruin somebody else's life to save mine, or do I do the right thing come what may? And to me, the answer is easy. It's door number 2. So you got to do the right thing. There's risk. We all, that just has to be done. The people playing it safe and trying to preserve their paycheck and their pension or loyalty to another group, whatever that group may be, other than their county, the people of that county. Public servants should be serving just us. That's it. Very interesting that there's an organization called ICRMP, the Idaho County Risk Management Program, which is the agency that protects all the agencies in the state of Idaho. So they're allowing and protecting in court, and they're protecting from legal recourse and protecting in lawsuits, so the state police and the sheriff and the courts can do what they're doing, which is work at the behest of the bankers to take whatever property they want to. No due process. Was I correct in hearing from you, Donna, that they you asked for 26 pieces of evidence and disclosure when you were in court, and they only gave you 2 or something like that. What was the absurdly low number of disclosure items they gave, the evidentiary items they gave you in your motion for disclosure?
It was our motion for discovery. Okay.
It was 9.
My friends, we don't have it in front of us right now, but basically there are only just a couple of answers, yes, sir, that they would answer.
Yes, sir.
Chad said, my son is saying he thinks it's 93. Again, Eric, we're going by memory. And
yeah, I think I remember talking with your son, and it was an absurd. You don't have to get the specific number, Donna, but if you had it, but it was something, like 2 out of 26 items is all the Nickersons were granted by the court as far as what they wanted from Chase and the mortgage company in their defense in their trial where they had to stay in court. I mean, so it just illustrates further how the system in the courts and everything was stacked against the people. They just don't hear us as long as they think we're a citizen. If we can correct our status, we may have a chance, but we need a lot of people to do it. We're going to be getting on that later this week. Gary or Chris, do you guys have anything to say on this matter?
Actually,
May I?
Go ahead, Gary.
Just 1 minute. I know I got one question. The church that you fellowship with, is that a 501c3 corporation church?
no, sir. No, sir. And it's a funny story, if you have just a second, Eric. Over 30 years ago, my husband and I began our ministry, and at that time, we both felt very, very, very much like we were not supposed to form a 501c3. And over the years, a lot of our church friends, different ministries that we've, worked with and stuff, they've actually scolded my husband at different times saying, hey, man, you're not even being a good steward. This doesn't make any sense. And he just always said that, I listen to God first, and we didn't think we were supposed to do it. And there was one conversation. It was really, all kind of threats came out of the banks during this process. And at one point, it was kind of funny. One of the things they told us was that if we did not sign the property over, that was always what we heard, sign it over, or we're going to go after everything. And anyway, in one of our conversations, they had said if we didn't sign it over, that they would cancel. They would cancel our 501c3. So I started laughing, and I said, thank you so much. We've been doing this for over 20 years at that time. And I said, we've never known why the Lord did not want us to do a 501c3, but we see why now, because they would have had that thing in our head. And it was, so I actually thanked the person I was on the phone with. We thought it was so cool, because sometimes, you do have things that you feel are the right thing to do, and you don't, you just, you believe that's what you're supposed to do, and you don't necessarily know why. And it's always really exciting whenever it comes back around and you get to see why. And Eric, if I may, I do want to just step back just for a second to your caller that was asking that he had said he was in the Patriot movement. We just want as a family for all the Patriots out there to know we are not problem causers. We're not trying to be rebellious here. We're not trying to do anything like that. And that's part of why we've chosen right now, with some of the recent statements and stuff, to be silent about it. We don't want to be the source of division. We're in this battle. We've sacrificed and given a lot of our life. This has changed everything for us over the years, and it was so much easier to walk away. And we didn't do that, like I said earlier. My husband said, because we believe the right thing to do is to stand.
It is. A person. I can't remember who said this. I think it was Ben Gurion or somebody like that. They said it was a good statement, and it was a person who fails to resist their victimizer is an accomplice to their own victimization. Right. And so I think, once again, Psalms 94:16 says, who will stand up, who will rise up? Very rarely does God repeat himself. That one's kind of clear to call to activism, and delicate Jesus was, an activist. He was out there hitting the streets. He didn't just sit around waiting for himself to return. He was out there getting her done. So people, get her done and help the Nickersons by calling the Clearwater County Courthouse tomorrow. We're going to post the information up on the website. Daniel, if you can start digging up the Clearwater County Courthouse, Judge Judd, I kid you not, Judge Judd, I think is who we're going to appear in front of. Tomorrow it's Jeannie. Is her last name Nickerson as well, Donna?
Yes, Smith.
Her name is Smith. Okay, so it's Jeannie Smith. Okay,
yes.
and Donna Nicholson. and their website is ithappenedtous.com. Of course, we're going to try to kind of duplicate and put up some of our, own stuff, and, I try to clear things with Donna if I'm putting up something that I'm not quite sure on at courtroomwatch.com. So either courtroomwatch.com or It Happened to Us. The more places we can get this posted, the better. People post it on your own Facebook. Be a force multiplier. You people out there, if you're a little too scared or sketchy to make a call to the courthouse, you shouldn't be, because it's very simple. We've never had anybody get hacked. We've had thousands of people. I know for a fact. We had a sheriff tell us that he was getting hundreds and hundreds of phone calls just in one case in Utah. And so I know the calls do make a difference, and he said he was trying to return all the calls, which to his credit. And it was cool because we were able to learn things, and he was able to know that we weren't like a threat, but we were so concerned about this case that hundreds of people are calling. And anyway, we got a guy out of doing 10 years in prison on a trumped-up case because he was working with a common law grand jury group, and simply trying to put his local officials on notice that they were, their corruption was noted, and it was nothing threatening. And of course, they're going to make up charges against anybody. So you're blessed that they haven't tried to make up some criminal charge against you, but they're working on it, and that's why they were so close to you, I think, with their guns out and right kind of in your face during the raid, so to speak, is because they're looking to take a fight. And once they can do that, then they can demonize the Patriot movement, the for lack of a better word, the freedom-loving people of this country. And they can say, well, look, they're all out of hand. They're firing guns. They're getting in, they're creating this or that disturbance. So bless you guys for taking the high road. Kudos to all the people out there, yourself and all the others who are not, losing their mind and flipping out and just going right for the bullet box. I wouldn't blame you almost, but it's not the way to keep credibility, and it's not the high road. Once again, I appreciate you taking the high road, especially, once again with Ammon Bundy. But it's just unfortunate that he's not. I don't know what he's missing in this case, but it's clear that you people got railroaded. Look, once you start making any offer to satisfy the entire loan, it should be immediately, oh, great, okay, we get the thing paid off, Bank of America or Chase gets their money, and you guys get your property, and everybody goes their way, and you continue on to keep paying rent to the county government and property taxes. But, and anyway, and by the way, the caller before, I think he was kind of trying to blame you for, how you supported the system this long and now it's coming back to bite you. Well, we've all done that. There's no regret. I mean, look, the Nickersons, more than anybody else I can tell, have tried to fight this. They went to Washington, D.C. from Idaho, the whole family, and visited how many people out there can tell me they visited every single Congress critter? I mean, God bless you for at least going out there and trying and giving them their due. And I think it's very interesting because you got interesting feedback. J.P. Morgan Chase is very powerful, they're being told by representatives. So that's the bank we can't mess with. Those are the big boys. Those are the banks over all the other banks. And these are things they were being told. Is that correct, Donna?
Yes, sir. We were told Wells Fargo, like I said, they control the assets and Chase controls the money.
Excellent. Hey, I got a question for you here, Donna. Are you guys still in the process of fighting the court system at the moment?
Yes, sir. We actually have on November.
That's what I want. I want some details for our people here to get involved, call the courts, doing the phone blitz. When would be your next court date? We want to put a spotlight on that and make sure that it's not forgotten or put in the background.
Okay. They have not given us one for the appeal yet. It's in the early stages of the appeal, but that should be coming soon, and so we'll keep y'all posted. Right now, we just have this one hearing tomorrow, and then at this point, the thing that would really help too is if everybody just can be praying. I mean, they seized 5 large moving trucks full of personal belongings, and there are still some at the ranch. And so we are trying to make that happen right now to get our hands back on that.
Well, and meanwhile, you were telling me earlier that there's people in and out of that place all the year. Still got stuff there that they haven't confiscated and won't let you go get, but yet they're letting strange people in and out of that property willy-nilly, around your stuff. Who are they and why are they allowed to go on the property when your personal belongings are still there? It's unbelievable. As much of that you can get on video, as possible. We'll get her posted up on the internet.
Yes, sir. The other thing is, y'all were talking about since you had mentioned about us trying to pay it off. I guess another thing to share about that is the sheriff also back. I'm guessing it was August, beginning of September. And I'd have to look at the dates when I have our notes back. But he actually told us that he had looked at all of our stuff. He saw the fraud. There was just no question. He mentioned the deed of trust and how right on it states that it can't be for an over 40-acre property, and ours is more than that. He appeared to be engaged and having looked at everything, and it was just bothering him. He told us, he told other people publicly, he was 100% on our side. Anyway, he actually, without talking to us about it, he actually called the bank on his own initiative. He told us that they probably figured the offer was coming from us, but he did it on his own initiative because he said he needed to hear it for himself, because even though he could see all the fraud, he saw everything else, he was thinking, why would the bank do this? This is so strange. Anyway, when he asked the bank, what can we do to get this thing resolved for the Nickersons, he was thinking, he would even be willing to help put money together if he had to, whatever is what he told us. Anyway, he said, how much would it take? What would be required? And they said, the Nickersons not interested. The Nickersons cannot have their property. And he had at that time told us that's what pushed him over the edge of, yep, this is targeted. There was a maliciousness to it, and.
But yet he still came up there and acted out on the seizure and the confiscation and the arrest, and it blows my mind. So I don't want to get lulled into giving him too much credit, because ultimately, in the end, he lost the battle with his conscience. And the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. I'm not joking. That the devil won in his case, and so that's not. He could have all the little conscience fits along the way, but if ultimately his final answer is to come on down on the side of wrong and steal your property, put you out in the street, and dishonor what he told you, which is that you're good for another 3 or 4 weeks. I'll let you know. There'll be some advance warning. There'll be a proper eviction notice. None of what you received. I don't see how there's anything that he did that was right, and how anybody can put stuff on the internet saying that the Nickersons are in the wrong, throw them out in the street. The sheriff was right. So was the witches' court. They all did the right thing, but there's no way. Not in this case. I'm telling you, I've done enough interviews with this family. I've done my research on this one enough that I'm satisfied that this family really got railroaded in a big way. So, all right, now, I hope Chris is still with us. I'd love to hear from Chris on this. Thank you for your patience. Now, here's what is going to help the Nickersons big time in the upcoming battle in the Supreme Witches Court of the state of Idaho. Okay. When we're going to have it up, I believe we already have it up on our website. If not, it'll be up before the night's over. I think the Nickersons have it up. It is the judicial complaint form, okay? There's no risk in filling out this form, people. There's only reward. You may get a call from the Judicial Review Board. That's awesome. You want to call back. You want to know they got the form and they're going to act on it. And say, yeah, and voice your concern. You have to have some concerns in this. Simple stuff like, every judge and police officer in this case defied their oath that they took to uphold the Constitution, which guarantees the Nickersons due process. They did not get due process. The Constitution upholds private property rights. Where's the private property rights in this case? They were deprived of their private property. Even the 14th Amendment that we're trying to resist says you can't deprive someone, I believe it's the 14th, says can't deprive your own citizen and cannot be deprived of property without due process. I mean, their own statutes. How can you not see this? And so it's really obvious. There's not how about this letting the meat spoil in the freezers. They couldn't give them till morning to go to the store and buy some new freezers. I mean, you can't have till sunrise. No, you got to come at 10 o'clock at night and get your meat. Thousands of dollars worth of meat spoiled. One mean, cruel, idiotic thing after another. There's not a shortage of stuff to complain about. And I'm going to print up some suggested complaints that people can use. And it's standard stuff. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see what's going on to these people. That's with these people. It's just cruel and unusual punishment. And those words are right out of the Constitution. And it prohibits things like this. So it's absurd. And there's a lot to complain about. You don't have to, all you have to do is download the form, fill it out and mail it in. Yeah, it does require mailing it in. They don't do email. I know that would be nice and easy, but you got to fax. They got to have it on paper. And I know for a fact, let me give you 2 success stories here from doing the complaint form. A Connecticut judge, a woman, very corrupt, Department DPS, Department of DCS, Department of Children and Family Services, they call it. It's like the CPS of Connecticut. I think she was the highest ranking judge, if I'm not mistaken, for that DCF court that was stealing people's children all over the state. And 29 complaints she got, and the Connecticut legislature refused to renew her nomination because of the 29 complaints. So she basically ended her career right then and there from the complaints. And that's a good thing. This is not revenge. This is not unjust. This needs to be done. Or it's going to, if you want to help the Nickersons do this, people, I'm imploring you to do it, because if the judges involved in the execution and the judgment against the Nickersons get enough complaints against them, that will resonate. That, believe me, the word goes around amongst them judges there, okay? Trust me, I know it does for fact. And they'll all get the message in the next higher level they're going up, that the people mean business, and we're watching what they're doing, and we're watching the corruption. The Nickersons brought evidence to the court that the judge refused to hear. Nickersons asked for pieces of this material disclosure, and they were denied that. 90% of it, 95% of it. That's an absurd number. The deck was stacked against them from the beginning. You can just say that in your complaint form, but file the complaint form, because that will really help this family. They have it a lot worse than you do, people. If you can, I mean, imagine getting thrown out of your home a week before Thanksgiving with no notice and no proper eviction, when you wanted to keep the place and pay it off, and they wouldn't let you. So, people, I hope I can stimulate people's caring, and people will go fill out the form, download it, print it out, fill it out, and mail it in. It costs 50 cents for a stamp, okay? If you can't do that, I don't know what you can do for freedom. There's not much you're going to be, and this is going to come for you. It comes for everybody eventually. So we need to help the Nickersons, stand by them. It can nip it in the bud. They can have success on their appeal if we get enough flood of complaints on the lower judges that ruled against them. And it'll send a resonating effect across the country. The judges have conventions. They had a convention in Las Vegas where they talked about how to take down the Patriot movement, how they were going to do things like this and confiscate property, use their power of the court, use administrative powers, meaning absolute judicial, what they call judicial discretion. Almost every statute says blah, 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 or judicial discretion, or discretion of the court, which basically null and voids the whole bill. It basically turns it into judge can do whatever he or she wants. And that's what they're operating. Total dictatorship, absolute militarized ecclesiastic courts. So now, I brought up the word ecclesiastic for a reason as well. We don't want to forget calls to the Archbishop of Boise, and we're going to put his name and number up online. He has great influence over everything that takes place in his diocese. Trust me, I've seen it happen. I've seen courts bow to the diocese vicar general and the diocese archbishop. Every city and every county has one. And you should see online how they're claiming sections of California. Half the state is a C city, meaning it belonging to the Vatican. And there's all kinds of legal things they're setting up to ensure their power over our courts. So don't forget to call the Archbishop and let him know that we need his intervention in this case. If he's a godly man, do godly work and help this godly family get out of this ungodly problem. Caesar is killing these Christians. I mean, where's your involvement in this? Now that you know, Mr. Archbishop, you're required to get involved, or I guess side with the enemy by your acquiescence. So if he gets enough nice phone calls like that, just gently putting the pressure on. You don't have to threaten him or swear or get freaked out by it, but let him know that you're watching. And that's really all they need. That's what they fear. It's just people watching, noticing, and waking up to the corruption of the courts, the government, and the other entities such as the Vatican and that are exercising influence over our courts. So I always recommend a call to the Archbishop as well as a call to the court, the judge. Call the supervising judge of the state of Idaho. There's going to be an administrative supervisor judge over all the lower judges. And that's wise to voice a little bit of a complaint with them. But ultimately, the piece of paper mailed in to the Judicial Complaint Commission in Idaho is going to have the most weight. It's going to stop these judges from hassling the Nickersons anymore. It's going to slow them down a great deal from doing it to the next people that come along through their court. And the higher up courts are going to take notice and hopefully give the Nickersons a fair shake, and they'll see what happened in this, and maybe the Nickersons get their property back. That's our goal. So right now they're near the property but not on it, and I so respect them for hanging out and camping out basically to try to retain their rights to the property. They were told by one of the Congress people, don't leave, stay. Possession is 9/10 of the law. They were right. Still, the state police and sheriffs came up on the order of the court and did whatever they were told to do. That's scary, because what else are they going to be ordered to do and then go ahead and happily do it with assault rifles of their own? It's a scary thought. So does anybody else want to chime in? Chris, are you still with us, and do you have any thoughts on this?
Chris, I believe, is gone. Gary's still here, though.
Good. Thanks for staying in there with us, Gary. I know this has been a long night. It's a very sad situation we're in, and I hope I can implore all the people out there who care about this case to put aside, the problems and the infighting and everything like that. We all want freedom from corruption and from things that are like this that deprive us of our property and deprive us of our liberty. So, Donna, do you have any other? Do you want to open up any other parts of this that I missed? Any things that I thought at one point the sheriff, I thought that it was. I had to laugh a little bit. I know this is not a funny situation, but at one point you told me the sheriff said, "If I were you guys, I wouldn't trust me either." I thought, is that true?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He said, after everything you've been today, I wouldn't trust me either. And like I said, it's very sad. The whole situation. I think I agree. Just people standing up, people speaking out, people saying, no, this can't happen under our watch. I think that's what's important. So.
Yep. Well, I'm going to encourage everybody that I can to do the judicial complaint. Oh, and the second situation with Tanya in California. The judge who kept sending her to jail finally dismissed everything because we buried him in complaints. And several people got calls back from the Judicial Complaint Commission, and that was great. And so we knew that they were getting the forms and they were acting on them. And they might say, well, why are you complaining? Just say, I'm very interested in this case. Your state is part of the country that I live in, and we're under a unified national legal system now. And so all the courts are operating this way, and hey, if nothing else, I care about this family. I see what an atrocity being committed. The best way to serve the Lord is serve others, and try to make your voice. It doesn't take very much energy to make your voice known that you're watching this case and you support the Nickersons. Real simple. You can get as simple or as complex as you'd like to out there. So I hope our activist people will at least send an email, make a phone call, preferably fill out that judicial complaint form. And we're going to give the names of all the judges. Oh, by the way, 4 out of the 5 judges on the court that ruled against, I believe, you were in front of the Supreme Court, the Idaho Supreme Court. 4 out of the 5 judges were appointed by a Republican governor. So that Republican Party that you think is going to save you from the left and it's going to get your property republic back and you're going to have all these freedoms restored. I mean, you keep dreaming. That's just as bad. Both sides we know who they work for. So please, people, fill out the judicial complaint forms. We'll provide the names for the judges appointed by a Republican governor. So they're not a alternative to the left. The Republican Party, which is actually a corporation, is a complement to the left. And so always remember that, people. It's time we need independent candidates. As soon as President Trump failed to run as an independent and decided he was going to sign on with the Republican corporation, I knew what was coming. More of the same. Look what's happening to the Nickersons. So, and very interesting, the federal treasury, the U.S. Treasury, the Federal Reserve, basically, because the Federal Reserve controls our treasury, is the majority owner of the Public Employees Pension Fund for the state of Idaho. So they got $50 million invested in Chase. The Treasury Department has 3 of the top 5 positions in PERSI, the Public Employees Retirement System of Idaho. So once again, the police out there whose pension depends upon, their stocks going up are going to do whatever the U.S. Treasury that owns their stock, and whatever Chase Bank owns their stock, or whatever they're told to do, they're going to do it. It's nothing more. It's just greed. But I think it's a combination of greed and fear. We need sheriffs with guts instead of cowards who are going to execute property seizures on behalf of the bankers. They're nothing more than a hit squad for the bankers using their position in government. It's called operating under color of law. It's a legal term and can be used. So, Donna, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we?
No, sir. Just thank you for having us on, and just thank you to everyone out there, that for any efforts and all efforts that y'all are expending and trying to save our home, all of our homes, because what happens to us can't happen to anyone else, and so. Well,
there's the Chase Bank and Wells Fargo, these two operators that you're being told own all the assets and the money in the country and kind of preside over all the other banks as kind of overlords, where these smaller banks are nothing more than subdivisions and front companies for the bigger operation. Look what they did with PHH in your case. That was strictly nothing more than a front group for Chase. Ultimately, they made the final call. They were the ones who told you they didn't want to do business with you. Even after they sold their mortgage, that indicates they have great power over the lower banks. So, and the representatives seem to kind of confirm that in no uncertain terms. So, we're in a very sad situation here. And meanwhile, there's a giant reality show going on in D.C. where they're trying to distract us from what's going on to people like the Nickersons. It should be noted, kind of a side note, people, that while everybody's being distracted by the impeachment hearings, they slipped through more Patriot Act provisions in the continued resolution to fund the government bill. On page 25, they buried it, and so people didn't really even notice that all of a sudden they renewed the very provisions that they claim to be, fighting against in these impeachment hearings. It's like they have their little front scam going in one room in front of the cameras, and they go down the hall and do a bunch of stuff that's exactly the opposite of that, and push that agenda, that globalist agenda, forward. So people need to start paying attention. They really do. And get involved. We need to do one case at a time. It's the Nickersons. Please, people, don't make this just kind of a whimsical, I heard about that, and then go on to your next thing. These people are going to be suffering through Thanksgiving. The least you can do is fill out the judicial complaint form against each one of the judges involved. There might be a half a dozen of them, so it costs you $3 in stamps. Make it part of your activism. If you don't do something for freedom, you're going to lose it. And the system takes note of who the easy people are, the pushovers. Resistance is not futile. Let me just put it that way. We've had a lot of success. Once again, Tanya had her case dismissed after the judicial complaint blitz, and a judge in Connecticut got this basically, her term was ended right there after the 29 complaints in Connecticut for the family court. So if they work. The complaints work. They really do. There's no risk. You can't get in trouble for it or anything like that. So people, look, got to have some guts. And if you really want to help this family, and I do, who wouldn't? Because if this was happening to you, you'd really be seriously hoping that some people would come to your assistance and help you out. And they're flapping in the wind out there, so don't let them do that alone. And I'd like everybody to make sure they go to ithappenedtous.com, courtroomwatch.com. I know Daniel's going to get it posted up at some other places, but those are the two basic where we'll post documents and suggestions and updates and ways that you can get involved. But right now, to get the Nickersons in good standing in there, where they have some, I want to really shake up the judges with a lot of complaints in this one. If they go up in front of their appeals court, and there's been a massive amount of complaints on those lower judges, then that's going to really. It's going to help the Nickersons a great deal. So this is simple. For $3 and filling out a few complaint forms, and you're doing a great service. This is going to make sure it doesn't happen in New York and Florida and the Carolinas and the Midwest and all these other states that are about going through this type of stuff. The message really resonates. They'll talk about it at their convention. and it will help our cause for freedom a great deal, people. So I hope I got some of our activists out there to get going on that. The judicial complaint form, perfectly legal and lawful, and it's essential. If you don't do something for freedom, you're bound to lose it. Gary, are you still with us? Thank you for hanging in there. I appreciate you just kind of kicking back. You're always there, and thanks for the prayer at the opening. Do you have any comments before we kind of wrap it up? And you can take your time because we got some few minutes still.
Well, actually, Eric, Gary dropped the call, but I think we did pretty good here this evening. I just want to thank Donna.
I just wanted to give everybody a chance to get in any last words. Okay, cool. So we're going to wrap it up for the night. Thank you to all our activists and listeners out there and followers. Daniel will keep the information posted. And Dan, you want to close it out? Thanks again, people. And Donna, thank you so much. If there's anything you'd like to say, close us out, Donna. It's kind of your night, and I want people to realize that this is, we got a lot to be thankful for on Thanksgiving, but we still have a lot to do for freedom. So go ahead, Donna.
Amen. Just happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and God bless you, and thank you for taking the time just to hear our story tonight. We appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. We're gonna get it out there, and I'm gonna make sure a lot of people know about this. And the ones who care and the ones who are, want to retain their freedom will get involved, and I think they'll reap the rewards of that. And the people who sit on the sidelines, I just hope to come around to get enough courage and enough caring to help out someone like you. You're good people, and you don't deserve what you're going through. The government's definitely in the wrong on this one. I wouldn't be involved if I thought that you were, somehow nefarious or somehow in the wrong. And so people dismiss your little side issues, come to the aid of these people, and fill out the judicial complaint form, make some phone calls, and send some emails on their behalf. And it's going to help the cause of freedom, across the entire nation. So with that, we're going to say good night to Donna. Donna, keep us updated, okay?
Yes, sir. Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, family, for being there every time I call. They're so well-spoken and so friendly, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, everybody here, for joining Studio 1776. We really appreciate your attendance and listening. Would you please do the Nickerson family a favor and share this video far and wide? Also, check in at Studio 1776 Courtroom Watch and also on the Nickersons family website. That would be great. We really would appreciate that so much. And once again, the Nickerson family website is ithappentous.com. You can find updates on their court case on this site, as well as information pertaining to this case and how you can get active and involved. Again, thank you so much for joining us at Studio 1776.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah?
I just wanted to thank Gary and Chris for joining us tonight, and thank you, Aunt Teresa, as well.
Thank you so much. All right, God bless, and we will see you guys in a few days.
Good night.
Good night.